Hi, my name is Legacy Russell. I'm the executive director and chief curator of The Kitchen here in New York City. And I'm very glad to be here with you, albeit virtually and remotely, to talk a little bit about Code Switch and a real love of my recent curatorial practice that I had the absolute joy of working on across teams with The Kitchen, the Schomburg, and MoCAD in Detroit. This is an exhibition that really has been 10 plus years in the making in terms of its research methods and practice. I come from a background of focusing on kind of where the intersections of race, gender, and technology live in my ongoing work. And this is, of course, a project that really speaks to many of those intersections and convergences. I think that the question of kind of Black data is something that permeates this as a project, thinking very much so about the framing of the Middle Passage and how, of course, the Middle Passage in its own right and telling of a diasporic Black history is in and of itself its own machine, right? And so if we're thinking about data as people and people, Black people carrying data, that, of course, that in and of itself, creates a really important genesis story to really think about, the movement of people as Black data. And then, of course, the somatic frame, what it means to really carry on one's body, Black data over time, and then to generate those traditions and passing them along computationally as a key algorithmic practice that, of course, is an inheritance and as well a living archive. So, really developing this as a project, I wanted to see a frame of kind of storytelling around how technology and Blackness have intersected and informed each other, been an exchange, and how Black people have been pioneering within that work from the beginning. So, of course, we're here to talk about E.A.T. You all are having a summit around E.A.T. as an important history, right? And so, I think that this is like all bound up within a discourse about, what it really means to expand the aperture in talking about technologies and how folks of African descent can be put at the center of that work. So I'm going to share with you a little bit more in terms of some images on the screen. And then my hope is that you will join me in following the exhibition as it continues to move in the world, and as well, perhaps reach out to me, and with the great hope that we can share space at some point soon. I'm sorry that I can't be there with you today. Thank you. Anne Duplan writes, "The need to articulate where exactly the Black avant-garde is propagating is important for Black artists resisting exploitation and depoliticization. The first of its kind internationally, Code Switch, Distributing Blackness, Reprogramming Internet Art, is a multi-sided exhibition exploring and redefining the history of Black data, centering and celebrating contributions by artists of African descent to the rapidly advancing field of new media and digital practice. Drawing its title from Andre L. Brock's groundbreaking text, Distributed Blackness, African-American Cybercultures, originally published in 2020, this exhibition explores the relationship between Black cultural production and the legacy of computation as a mode of machinic engagement and creative inspiration. A web domain is a distinctive name that wayfinds to a website on the internet. Code Switch is therefore divided into 3 domains as a means of moving through space and time. The first is the time period pre-1960, the second is 1960 to 1990, and the third takes the view of 1990 to present day. The initial 2 domains of this exhibition debuted at the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture, presented by The Kitchen in 2024. This exhibition at the Schomburg included artists such as Lorraine O'Grady, Tom Lloyd, Jack Whitten, Faith Ringgold, Benjamin Patterson, Milford Graves, Candace Mosley Petway and Maddie Ross of the Gee's Bend tradition, and as engaged selections from the Schomburg's collections, such as rarely seen material from the archive of the Harlem Youth Opportunities Unlimited HARU, the first HARU report titled Youth in the Ghetto, A Study of the Consequences of the Powerlessness, and A Blueprint for Change, which made data-driven consciousness-raising recommendations and was published in 1964 following the Harlem Uprisings. At the Schomburg also is included some of the data portraits from W.E.B. Du Bois, of course, visualizing data of the sociological work that he did, which were profound in their contributions. And of course, uplifting and acknowledging the contributions of Black computer scientists, mathematicians, and engineers, such as Evelyn Boyd Granville, Dorothy Vaughan, Creola, Katherine Johnson, Mary Jackson, Annie Easley, Gladys West, and Clarence Skip Ellis. There are also works of visual artists such as David Drake, otherwise known as Dave the Potter, and folks such as Ulysses Jenkins and Blondell Cummings. So if the Schomburg engaged the first two domains, pre-1960 and 1960 to 1990, the third took us from 1990 to present day. And this third domain occurred at the Museum of Contemporary Art, Detroit, across spring and summer of 2025. The electronic superhighway between these three organizations really marked an unprecedented exchange across the sites of the Kitchen, the Schomburg, and MoCAD. From the Kitchen's founding in 1971, New York has continued to be in recognition of the Kitchen as a leading nexus of the avant-garde and experimental art. And as part of its institutional history, it maintains a living archive of over 4,000 artists. So founded in 1925, the Schomburg's mission is to preserve African-American, African diaspora, and African experiences. And its Harlem Research Library, as a branch of the New York Public Library, is internationally renowned. And then founded in 2006, MoCAD in Detroit is a nexus for educating the public about contemporary arts and music, and plays a critical role in connecting Detroit to the global art world. What you're seeing on the screen here is the third domain, and Popel's work within that, and a little bit of context about, kind of the through line in terms of the 2025 presentation of this third domain. And of course, marking what was the 52nd anniversary of the first International Computer Art Festival that was held actually at the Kitchen from April 1st to 14th in 1973, and included artists such as Alvin Lucier, Namjoon Pike, and Ron Hayes. So the Kitchen's Computer Art Festival provided a snapshot of artists applying the frame of the computer as a means of exploring what was then a nascent field of new media as a burgeoning canon. Code Switch in this form now takes up the charge of centering Afro-diasporic experience within this trajectory. So this exhibition really posits that the record of Blackness globally is inextricably intertwined with the history of technology, and that while historically under-recognized, Black people have always been and continue to be new media pioneers. We can see that there is a wide range of really amazing artists presenting within this third domain, who are really tackling some of the challenges that have come from the internet's inception in 1969 and arc to the present day, acknowledging that this is a period that rose up out of the U.S. government-funded military intelligence initiative of ARPANET, and then of course that led to the first public operational computer network, and what the relationship is, uneasy as it is, between the technological advancements and motivation that became the foundation of the internet, with complex dilemmas and questions of consent and agency in the face of surveillance and data extraction. These phenomena really redefine modernity and visual culture, and Code Switch and the artists who are included across these domains really survey how artists and creative technologists rattle at the promise of cyberspace as an equitable site of representation and liberation, upending it as a current and generative force for both inquiry and resistance. And we're seeing here on the screen artists such as Aria Harvey, American artist, Zenobia Bailey, Cameron Rowland, Muriel Tramis, Chakoma, folks like Patrice Lumumba, Devin Kenny, Martine Sims, Fatima Tugar, E. Jane, Julie Moretu, Charles Gaines, Jack Whitten, Juliana Huxtable, Manuel Arturo Abreu, Fields Harrington, Stephanie Dinkins, Nancy Mutiti, Marilyn Nance, who you can see on the back wall here, Cameron Granger, Ayodamola Okunzendi, Keith and Mendy Obedake, and a wide range of other brilliant contributors. Really, Code Switch intends to take a look across disciplines and materials to see what these artists instruct towards and intervene within, and creates an expanded definition of internet art, indicating that art produced in an era of accelerated mass communication cannot and should not be set apart from a discourse of cybercultures and technology. Thank you.